What's the BJP's agenda in Uttar Pradesh? India's ruling party is cracking down on butchers and abattoirs in the country's most populous state. Muslims say they're being targeted. But is this just about meat, or is it an ominous indicator of rising Hindu nationalism? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Martine. Now, India's most populous state is running out of meat. Police in Uttar Pradesh have been closing dozens of slaughterhouses, leading to a meat shortage in the state that is home to 200 million people. Politicians say the crackdown is about licences, but government critics say it's about religion. We'll get to our guests in just a moment. First, this report from Tarek Basley.
These meat shops in northern India are normally busy, but traders across Uttar Pradesh have shut their shops as part of an indefinite strike. They're protesting against the government's crackdown on slaughterhouses that it considers illegal.
We are shopkeepers and we have two helpers working for us, who are paid less than $4 a day. So where would those people go to earn on a daily basis? Who will give them food to eat?
The state's new chief minister called for the crackdown soon after taking office. He wants police officers to close any shops they suspect of slaughtering cows. That's illegal in India. Cows are sacred to Hindus. But these meat traders say they've been selling buffalo and goat meat, which is allowed. Restaurants across the state are also suffering because of the crackdown.
We are not getting meat, which has hurt our business. Prime Minister Narandra Modi and Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath need to understand that the crackdown needs to stop and our restaurants must be reopened. Around 40 laborers who work at our restaurant are starving.
This is the wrong way for the government to suddenly shut down the shops. They should have given a 1-month notice to issue their licenses. If they can't do one, then action would be taken. But shutting down at random has caused so much agitation, and low supply is affecting business.
Many of these meat traders are Muslim. Critics of the Hindu chief minister say this crackdown is meant to target them. Yogi Adityanath was recently appointed by Prime Minister Narandra Modi. He now leads India's most populous state, where nearly a fifth of its people are Muslim. He's spoken out against them in the past. In August 2014, he said,
"If one Hindu girl marries a Muslim man, then we will take 100 Muslim girls in return. If they kill one Hindu man, then we will kill 100 Muslim men."
Adityanath faces several criminal charges, including defiling a place of worship and inciting religious violence. But since taking office, he's spoken repeatedly of social inclusion.
With the slogan of development for all, by all, we will try to establish good governance and development in Uttar Pradesh.
But in light of the crackdown, Muslims in Uttar Pradesh are still wary of Adityanath and his motives. Tarek Basley, Al Jazeera.
Time to introduce our guests, and sadly we were hoping to be joined by a member of the BJP governing party, but unfortunately the MP pulled out at the last minute. But we do have Rana Ayyoub, journalist and author of the Gujarat File, Anatomy of a Cover-Up, about the 2001 Gujarat sectarian riots, and the BJP. In New Delhi we have Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay, who is author of Narandra Modi, The Man, The Times, and he's an expert on right-wing Hindu politics. Welcome to you both. Thank you very much. As I said, it's a real shame that we're not joined by a member of the BJP parties, but Rana, can I start with you? Because this is an issue that is much more than about the protein on somebody's plate in Uttar Pradesh.
Well, certainly. I think this is by appointing somebody like Yogi Adityanath as the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh. Narendra Modi, who has been talking about inclusive development, has made a resounding slap in all of us who have been fearing this kind of politics. Yogi Adityanath manifests everything which is right-wing nationalism, majoritarian Hindutva, especially with the kind of comments that has made by him in the past. especially the cases that have been registered against him about, for instance, communal rioting, violence. Ever since he has come to power, I think the first few things that he has spoken about is a beef ban, and not just a beef ban, but also meat and buffalo ban. He's also spoken about, about the temple, rebuilding of a contentious temple in Uttar Pradesh. There is a vigilante squad which he has set up for women and men to not meet in public spaces unless the cops are are convinced that they are not a couple. I think we are returning to this regressive mode of Indian politics that we have seen in the past, and Narendra Modi, who had promised to take us in the path of development, has gone the regressive way, and we are back to right-wing Hindu nationalism.
All right, let's go to Nilanjan now. Do you agree with Rana, or do you think we're perhaps rushing to judgment? I mean, initially the Yogi's words were of inclusivity. They were quite conciliatory.
This is not exactly the start, but actually, it's a continuing slide towards a kind of politics which is going to take quite some time to finally reach the final goal which is there in the mind of a Hindu nationalistic country. But coming back to what is happening within UP at the moment, I think it is understandable from the time the BJP came out in late January with a fairly Hindu nationalistic centric election manifesto, which was quite a step aside from the earlier promise which Mr. Modi had made that he's going to contest the elections on a positive plank, that is of demonetization of the Indian currency and of the surgical strikes against Pakistan-based terrorists. So when they realized that a positive plank was not working, that is why they actually emphasized certain Hindu nationalistic issues, of which stopping so-called illegal slaughterhouses was one of them, bringing about specifically set up police squads to stop so-called Romeos to woo girls, especially the Hindu girls. That was the second thing. Then the BJP had also created a big campaign that Hindus were fleeing from Muslim-dominated villages. That is also going to be stopped. So by and large, in the entire campaign, there was an attempt to polarize the electorate on a Hindu and Muslim basis. Mr. Modi, in one of his very significant campaign-turning speeches, said that, talked about graveyards and Hindu cremation grounds, said that if a government gives land to a graveyard, indicating that the previous government did pursue politics of appeasing Muslims. So thereby the other government should also provide land and other facilities for Hindu cremation grounds. So there has been this constant attempt that Hindus are discriminated against, and his government is going to act in favor of the Hindus.
Rana, coming back to you, let's focus just for a moment then on this specific issue of what seem to be illegal abattoirs. Surely it's in the population of Uttar Pradesh's interest to have high standards of hygiene and a robust licensing system for the production of their meat.
Absolutely, but here in this particular case, we are not just talking about license for abattoirs. Here, in the garb of license and in the garb of shutting down illegal abattoirs, you have certain MLAs or representatives from the government who are called the fringe, actually making statement there that they're willing to kill anybody who slaughters a cow. There are meat shops which are being shut down on the garb of shutting down beef shops. The point is, when you start on something without a proper planning, I mean, in this particular case, nobody was given a warning. Even the meat traders, forget the beef traders, even the meat traders were not given a warning. So they have gone on an indefinite strike. What they do not understand is that in Uttar Pradesh, the meat business and the abattoir business provides livelihood to at least 20 lakh people. So, I mean, here is the government which talks about development, but the first thing it does when it comes to power is to shut down abattoirs, which it calls illegal. But it's also, in a way, generalizing on the entire problem rather than taking specific steps.
And Rana, I mean, the supreme irony must be that given the nature of the landslide, it was a massive landslide, wasn't it, that the BJP won in Uttar Pradesh. So that means that a good number of Muslims would have voted for the BJP platform.
Well, one cannot say with absolute confidence that Muslims would have voted for the Yogi-led government. But let's assume, for the sake of argument, that Muslims did vote for the BJP in Uttar Pradesh. I think instead of being humble in the victory, the Prime Minister, by appointing somebody like Yogi Adityanath, who has been known to make vitriolic statements against Muslims, has sent a signal that they do not really care about Muslims and minorities in Uttar Pradesh.
Okay.
I think it's very ironical. Yeah.
All right, Nilanjan, I saw you shaking your head earlier when I suggested that a large number of Muslims would have voted for the BJP in order to give it this massive landslide.
Well, I've been looking at the figures. First of all, there is no empirical evidence to suggest that what the BJP is claiming, that Muslims did vote for them. But if you actually go through the number of constituencies where the Muslims are fairly sizable, which add up to maybe about 25% or more, or even 30% or more, where they could play a decisive role in deciding who is going to win or lose. What has probably happened is that because this was primarily a triangular contest with the BJP on one side and two so-called secular parties on the other side, the previous government, Samajwadi Party, and the BSP led by a lady called Mayawati, which get a lot of support from the Muslims also, the votes in each of these constituencies got divided, especially in those constituencies where both put up Muslim candidates, and there were almost 50 constituencies where both had Muslim candidates. So what has happened is that the Muslim voter got confused as to who stood the best chance of defeating the BJP candidate. This is actually a part of a strategy which the BJP has been practicing for the past 25 years or more, called reverse polarization. Wherever there is a polarization of Muslim vote against the BJP goes to the Hindus and say the Muslims are ganging up against a Hindu party, against a party which represents the interests of the Hindus. So please vote for us in all numbers. And even if you look at the figures, BJP and its allies have got 41%, which is really not anywhere near a majority. They're still 9% away from 50% mark. But in India's first past the post system, this is what works.
All right, and Rana, so the BJP was voted for, 41%, as we've just heard from Nilanjan, but the appointment, the selection of this particular controversial political priest, how is that being viewed? I mean, is this being seen as particularly provocative? Because he could have chosen anyone. He could have chosen anyone.
Absolutely. When you get a majority like this, when 41% is not a small number, when you get a majority like this, people expect you to actually show your secular image. Instead, you have gotten a man who's not just communal, I mean, from his earlier political history, but is also a regressive and a sexist politician who, during the Women's Reservation Bill in Parliament earlier, had said that when women try to be liberal, they become demons. I mean, here's the Chief Minister of a state wherein women command a considerable population, and when you make these statements, I think that shows that we are back to a very regressive kind of politics. Not just that, I think the BJP also, I mean, as Nilanjan was pointing out, BJP appealed to the unified Hindu voter, because in this particular election, there was no seeking of votes on the basis of caste, which is a very integral part of Uttar Pradesh election. This time around, Narendra Modi, who did maximum campaigning in Uttar Pradesh, sought votes on the basis of religion, on the basis of identity. And again, by having Yogi Adityanath as the face of Uttar Pradesh, I think he has sent out a clear signal that development is not really on the agenda of Prime Minister Modi. Communal politics certainly is.
Nilanjan, I suppose it would be quite useful at this stage in the conversation to actually define what Hindu nationalism means in practice for this vast, very diverse country that is India today. What does it actually mean for minorities, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians and others?
I couldn't get your complete question, but basically I understand the gist of it. If you actually try to break down as to why a person like Yogi Adityanath was made the chief minister, you have to understand that he has not risen within the BJP from the ranks. He's moved into the party laterally from one of the affiliated religious bodies with the BJP and its other allied organizations like the RSS, which is headquartered in Nagpur. The other most very interesting aspect which we have to keep in mind is that Yogi Adityanath comes from very much the kind of a political background, or his status is almost virtually the same what used to be Prime Minister Narendra Modi's background way back in 15 years ago in 2002-2003, when he was considered to be a fringe leader and the Prime Minister of the BJP then, Mr. Vajpayee, and the rest of his cabinet were considered to be the mainstream. So now Mr. Modi has actually taken on a position of mainstream, whereas Yogi Adityanath has been presented as a fringe. So this is a very clever strategy to shift the attention to a leader who has come from the outside and on whom there is a complete point of convergence between various factions of the party.
Nilanjan, I want to stay with you on this because actually what I had asked, and I'd really like to get your thoughts on this, is what does Hindu nationalism mean in practice for minority communities in India, like the Muslims, the Sikhs and the Christians? What does it mean in practice?
In theory, we have to first understand that the basic theory of Hindu nationalism is that it defines the way we look at India and nationalism. Who are we as a people? The basic construct of Hindu nationalism is that we are a cultural identity, that we are a nation because of a cultural nationalism. We are not a nation because of territorial nationalism. There is a common culture which unifies people, or which unites people, which makes them Indians, and the culture which is Hindu. You can be culturally a Hindu, but it's not necessary to be a practicing Hindu. You could follow different faiths. That's what they argue. They say that you can follow Islam, you can follow Sikhism, which in any case they consider to be part of Hinduism. So if you want to live in a country which is ruled by a Hindu nationalistic party, then you have to believe yourself culturally to be a Hindu.
Right,
that is the basic thing which
that's very
means
clear.
in practice.
Thank you. That's very clear. So let's put that then to Rana. As a Muslim woman, a Muslim Indian woman, does Hindu nationalism therefore call into question your identity as an Indian?
Well, I mean, as an Indian first, I think, and not just as a Muslim, as an Indian, I think this kind of corrodes the secular identity of India. This is not the idea of India that the forefathers who got us independence had envisaged. The idea of India was to have everybody together under the constitutional framework. What we see now, as you asked earlier about Hindu nationalism as defined by the RSS, which is the ideological fountainhead of the BJP, defines it as a government, as a constitution meant only for Hindus and others being second-class citizens. Right now, as I talk to you as a Muslim in this country, I believe that my constitutional rights are being infringed on. That I mean, I'm sitting far away in Bombay, but I feel for those in Uttar Pradesh. Tomorrow, I mean, this is just the beginning. I mean, you're talking about temple politics, you're talking about women's rights, you're talking about beef ban. You don't know what could be next. So, I mean, instead of having a soothing hand on the nerves of the Indian Muslims, Mr. Modi is perhaps sidelining the Indian Muslims to quite an extent. And not just the Indian Muslims, I would say, all the minorities, which also includes the Christians, the Sikhs, and the Dalits in this country, who at this point of time feel very sidelined.
And Nilanjan, if indeed this is the case, that Narendra Modi has now showed his hand, is taking the country ever more into Hindu nationalism, isn't this a dangerous, a risky policy, marginalising one of the largest Muslim communities in the world, a very big minority within India, a disaffected Muslim community without hopes of employment or hopes of betterment is a very dangerous prospect given the neighbourhood in which you live?
The way I look at it, I think, the kind of direction that this government appears to be heading in, it possibly may create more problems for the government and for the country than for the Muslims, because you are actually going to create a situation where such a large number of people are going to not have a political voice. I have never seen this kind of political isolation and irrelevance of Muslims in the country ever. So naturally, when there is such isolation and irrelevance, they are going to find voice. Probably among more radical groups of Muslim political parties are going to come up. If they are not satisfied with radical groups within mainstream politics, they may look at other means also, and it is definitely going to be a threat to state security. Internal security is already a big problem in India, and I think it is only going to become more and more serious if you have a large number of disaffected people.
And Rana, not to mention the economic impairment that this policy is likely to yield for the country. I'm also wondering whether you think that this move towards greater Hindu nationalism is perhaps a byproduct, a consequence of the failure of the main opposition party, the Congress Party, and perhaps even an end to the dynastic politics of the Congress parties, the Gandhis, of course, who have ruled the party for generations.
Absolutely. I think Rahul Gandhi, who is leading the opposition right now, seems to be more like a curse for the party, and also I think a winning card, a trump card for the BJP, because till such time that the Congress remains in power under Rahul Gandhi, who is the vice president of the party, it looks like a lackluster opposition, which has really not taken up any of the issues so far. I mean, here was BJP, which went to seek votes in Uttar Pradesh with not a single Muslim candidate. I mean, it's surprising that here's the Prime Minister talking about inclusive development, but they did not have a single Muslim candidate. And on the other hand, the opposition in this country, I mean, when the results were announced, Rahul Gandhi was nowhere to be seen. He was lost. I mean, television cameras couldn't find him. He was just out of media glare for the next 2 days. He should have been a responsible opposition. He should have he should have stated exactly what Narendra Modi should have, behave like as a principal leader of the country. But, I think one of the reasons why the ruling party is a success as it is today is because we absolutely have no opposition in this country, especially from the Indian National Congress. I guess in the next possible general election, we could see a possible decimation of the Indian National Congress at the rate at which it is going right now.
OK, Nilanjan, then that takes us to 2019. It looks very much as though Narendra Modi and his BJP party is pretty much a shoo-in for another term in office.
I think it's still too early to start talking in terms of 2019 being a clear walkover for Mr. Modi. In elections, a lot can happen between now and 2019. But yes, definitely there are indications that Mr. Modi is very strongly placed. But I feel that the main opposition to Mr. Modi is going to come from the regional parties, which in several states are very strong. There are states like West Bengal. There's a lot unfolding in Tamil Nadu after the death of the previous Chief Minister Jayalalitha. The party has split. We really do not know which way the politics is going to pan out there. You have the large state of Bihar. You have a great amount of turbulence going on in Maharashtra, where the BJP is in government. We are really not very sure whether its ally Shiv Sena is going to continue to be part of it or not. So there's a huge amount of churning going on against the BJP, which is being led by very strong regional players. And I think that in 2019, the likely scenario which I see is that in various pockets there would be regional challenges, and maybe after elections, if they have the sufficient numbers, they could possibly start looking at whether there can be some kind of a working understanding between them, either as opposition or to even govern India.
All right.
It all depends on the kind of numbers which they're able to get and the kind of consolidation which Mr. Modi is able to generate in 2019.
I'm afraid our time has now elapsed. Can I thank you both very much indeed for a very interesting conversation. Nilanjan, Mukhopadhyay and Rana Ayyoub. Thank you very much indeed, and so sorry that we couldn't have that conversation with a member of the BJP party, but thank you both. And as ever, thank you for watching the programme. You can see it again anytime you like by going to the website, aljazeera.com. If you want more discussion, go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. There's always the Twitter sphere as well, our handle @AJ Inside Story. But from me, Martine Dennis, and the whole team here in Doha, it's bye for now.